Hello friends, it is I, ZQuixotix, more easily known as Zach, here to continue the pulling series. This time we're going to talk about the large camp. I don't know why I wrote large camp though, I call it the hard camp. Leave a comment, what do you guys call it? Ha ha ha. Anyways, these are the topics we're going to cover. Feel free to skip around using the timestamps in the description. I do recommend, if you haven't seen it already, pulling 201, the small camp. Some of those concepts still apply here, and I'm not going to repeat them. Things like how creep aggro works, some of the mentalities you should have when pulling, all of that. Not going to cover it again because it's already there. So let's start meeting the camps. Let's start with the Centaur camp. So this one's worth 92 gold, 150 experience. There's some variability in the hard camps, but it's not that important because you can't really control it. It has the ability War Stomp. The way this works is that if there are 3 viable targets within range, he will stomp. 3 viable targets includes creeps and heroes, but it does not include a hero that is hidden or magic immune. So say you have Juggernaut and 2 heroes, and Juggernaut is spinning. That is 2 valid targets, not 3. When Jug stops spinning, that is 3 valid targets, and then the Centaur will stomp. It's not really a big deal. You just want to try to not get caught in the stomp. It's only 25 damage, really not a lot, but you will get stunned for 2 seconds, and that might give the enemy time. If they see you get stunned, they might run over and chain stun you with their own stuns or something like that. So, no reason to let them do that. Just keep your distance when pulling this camp. The little centaurs have this cloak aura. Other creeps also have this. It gives 20% magic resistance to the other neutrals around it. The auras don't stack though, so the most they can have is 20% magic resistance. In terms of pulling, this is not a huge deal because lane creeps just do physical damage. Anyways, this is more relevant if you need to clear these camps with magic spells. But because it doesn't stack 20%, like, you know, it's a bit harder than you might expect, but it doesn't get like increasingly difficult the more you stack. So you don't really have to think about that ability too much, except maybe when trying to snipe a last hit with a spell. Keep in mind that there's 20% magic resistance. Oh, and something else I should say about this camp before we move on. They're pretty much the worst when it comes to killing off creeps. You might think that all the big camps should be better at killing creep waves than the small camps, but that's not true. As you'll see from the video clips I'll put in of these camps being pulled. Because big creeps don't have piercing damage, most camps don't. They're actually not as good as you might expect. They still do more damage typically, and especially if you help them out, it is possible to kill off entire creep waves, something the small camp does not have available. But still, if you pull the camp and leave them alone, the large centaur camp is typically the worst, but usually still better than most of the small camps. So, next camp, the large satyr camp. This camp is pretty cool. They've got a lot of abilities. So, the Satyr Tormentor has Shockwave, otherwise known as Hadouken. The Mind Stealer has Mana Burn. The little one, Banisher. Yeah, Banisher. He's got Purge. These are really powerful abilities, and they never use them, ever, if they're a neutral creep. So we don't have to worry about them. I'm not going to talk about them that much. But if you are dealing with an enemy Enchantress, Chen, Doom, Helm of the Dominator comes back into the meta, then you might want to be aware of these abilities, so here they are. But until then, as far as pulling goes, they never use them, so we don't have to worry. Unholy Aura, though, is one I want to mention. Some of these camps, this one included, and a couple more we're going to cover in a second, have these passives. And as far as an individual camp goes, the passive is just fine. It's balanced around one camp. So you don't have to worry about it too much in that regard. When you pull a single creep wave to this camp, Unholy Aura helps them survive a little bit more, but honestly not that much, and you can still kill off the creep wave with helping them out, or you can kill this camp if you want to do that instead. When you stack the camps, though, and now they have Unholy Aura plus another one, maybe another one, that is when hard camps get crazy strong from all these different auras. So keep that in mind. For a single camp, an aura like this one, not a huge deal, but when you get to multiple stacks, that's when it matters. So for example, Unholy Aura, when you stack a hard camp and then you pull it, there are more creeps, so they're going to split the damage among themselves. And then Unholy Aura is going to heal them up a ton. Neutral creeps typically have 0.5 HP regen by default, and this is 5 bonus regen. That is 10 times as much, putting him at 5.5 every second. So you will pull 1 creep wave, for example, and if you plan to whittle down the camps, you should not plan to do that, because they will heal up everything in between creep pulls. Great for repeatedly killing creep waves if that's what you want to do. Not so good if you're trying to farm this camp slowly. You kind of have to like focus your effort to kill these creeps off. Next camp is the Hellbear camp. This is typically the strongest camp. Even without helping them, they can kill off an entire creep wave on their own with a bit of RNG, depending how focusing works, mainly due to this Thunderclap ability that the Hellbear Smasher has, the big red tomato. It will clap the creeps and you. This ability is really powerful. It's the one you have to worry about the most. It does 150 damage, which is a ton, and it slows you, and it reduces your attack speed for 3 seconds. So if the enemy sees you get clapped, they have the choice to go and fight you, and you are literally just weaker because you stood too close to this bear when he was clapping. The way it works is the same as the Centaur Stomp. When there are 3 viable targets, he will use the clap. So it's easy to dodge. Just pull the camp, aggro your creep wave, and then do not stand next to this Hellbear Smasher, and then you're all good to go. The clap will do a ton of damage to the melee creeps, and that's how this camp kills off creep waves on its own. Just don't get caught in it, and then we're good to go. It also has a swiftness aura on the big creep. It increases attack speed to his allies by 15. Nice. Again, for a single camp, not broken. Stacked camps, that's when it gets really good. The little Hellbear also has the cloak aura. Don't really need to talk about it more because we talked about it before. The Wild Wing camp, toughness aura, everyone gets 3 armor. Single camp, not a big deal. When you have a bunch of camps, you got super armor, super attack speed. You got super regen, right? This is when the camps get scary. He also has this ability called Tornado, which he does not use, so we're not going to worry about it too much. Again, you only have to worry about it if there's like an Enchantress or something like that. Finally is the Troll camp. These guys do have piercing damage. Same with that Satyr Banisher. So they're the only ones with piercing damage. So this is a pretty good camp in terms of doing damage. You'll notice these extra values in parentheses. That is for when he uses Raise Dead. So actually, real quick, Ensnare, he won't use. So it's the same as the other abilities. Only when he's controlled will he use this one. Raise Dead, though, it's a little weird the way it works. I'm just going to cover the one when he's a neutral, which is that something needs to die in his AoE 600 range, and it doesn't really matter the time, and you have to hit him. If just lane creeps hit him, he won't use this ability. You have to hit him once after something has died in his range, and then he will call in the boys. And the boys are worth a little bit of gold and XP, so that's where these extra parentheses values come from. And yeah, that's Raise Dead. So altogether, the camps are on average worth 100 gold and 166 XP. Same rules as before, you can't spawn multiple or the same camp twice in a row, and this is their default HP regen. So most of the camps you can whittle down. It's when that large satyr comes into play that you lose that ability because of that passive, so that's why I wanted to highlight that. I'll take this moment to remind you that the small camp is worth 66 gold and 100 XP on average. So the small camp is worth a little more than a third of a creep wave. The hard camp, as a general rule, is worth about 2/3 of a creep wave. So it's worth a lot more gold, which brings us to what's good about the hard camp. It's worth more resources. So if you can kill off these camps through pulls, it's great for you. You're still doing the same stuff as before, denying XP, equilibrium, blah, 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 but you just get more golden experience than a small camp. And with that lead, maybe you're going to get kills, maybe you can snowball the lane, something like that. Hard camps are more likely to kill off all the creeps, but still not as much as you might think going from small camp to a big camp. So you probably have to help out, but if you do help out, there's a greater chance that you can actually kill all the creeps, or at least like three or more creeps. Whereas the small camp, even when you helped out, it was pretty hard to kill more than like 2 or 3 if you pull a whole wave. Sometimes it happens, but it usually required some like lucky creep aggro behavior stuff. So the hard camp is more consistent when it comes to killing off more creeps, but not too much. They also can be stack pulled. The small camp, I had a brief video on it where after the patch, it was possible to stack and pull at the same time, and that was broken. That's why it got patched out of the small camp immediately after I made that video. It is part of how the hard camp is balanced, though. So this can be good, but it can be risky as well. It kind of leads us to what's bad about the hard camp. If you remember from the small camp video, this is pretty much just the reverse of everything good about the small camp. It is closer to the lane, which means it's barely out of XP range. I'll show you that in a second. And because it's close to the lane, it's easier to contest. It's easy for them to see it. It's usually easy for them to walk up and at least absorb XP, maybe even fight for it. And because they're worth more, if you give them these creeps, that's bad. So that's why it's a danger. And that's kind of what balances out that stack pull possibility, is because they could come steal it. It's also harder to attempt depending on which pull you're going to do. So we'll cover that too. For the offlane, there's a very easy path to pull the hard camp, and then a harder one to do as a alternative method. For the safe lane, it's typically pretty hard to use the hard camp. Just because of the way... well, I'll show you in a second. So here we are. I guess I'll show you now. Here's the small camp, right? So here's where XP ends, and here's the lane. So for them to come get XP and maybe even contest this, they have to walk all the way over. And when they're standing like somewhere here, they could get XP from both sides, the small camp and the lane. But they're probably not getting last hits if they're like in between both. So that's why it was hard to contest the small camp. Look at the big camp here. This is the rough approximation of 1500 range. Earth Spirit here, he's in it just by being here. He doesn't even know, like maybe a pull's going on. He doesn't know, and he's getting XP. And once he does know, he's right here. He can start fighting for it. So just the difference in position makes it more dangerous to use this camp for both sides. All of this applies to both the safe lane and the off lane. Small camp can only be used by the safe lane, but the hard camp can be used by both. I probably should have said that at the start, but I'll say it now. On the dire side, same deal. Small camp, here it is. Very hard. Well, not very hard, but it's harder to come contest this if you're the off lane. But the hard camp, whether it's the safe lane using it or the off lane using it, both sides can very easily come to contest this hard camp. So it's worth more, but there's more of a risk attached to this camp as well. So next I want to show you guys the actual pulls. So first, as the Radiant offlane, the earliest you can about hit this is 46 seconds. This hard camp is now quite lenient in how far it chases. You notice you could probably have even gone a little sooner, but some camps have different move speeds, some aren't ranged, sometimes you're melee, you know, so I tend to avoid those extreme times because you can mess it up and go for something more safe. So 16 seconds is the first time. Well, I should say 16 or 46, and then the next time is 19 or 49 seconds is about the latest that I'm willing to try to pull, because as you see, you run straight across. And yeah, maybe we could do like 20 seconds and it would pull, but anything beyond that, and you might mess it up, and there's no reason to take that risk, in my opinion. So there you go, some easy pulls right there. So if you go at 51, it's kind of a choose your poison adventure here a bit. But let's hit this at 51 or 21, depending on the time. And if you walk through this tree here and wait right here, boom, a pull. So the bad thing about this is sometimes they lose sight, like through here, and it gets messed up. But if you get it done properly, there you go. 51 stacks this camp, does the pull, all good to go. Now the other timing is 22 seconds, which I was a little late there, but I think this should still work. And you walk this way, the creeps attack you, aggro's the whole thing, but right here, they kind of lose sight sometimes. So you see some of them still kept trying to chase, and then they got sight again, so now they finished chasing. But you can lose some creeps there. Now you'll also notice I completed the pull over here. And this is very close to the lane. So right now I've given Axe a bunch of hearts and a Vanguard, so you see he's just holding the creeps away for me. But if the enemy has creeps around here, this pull path will not work. So this way, I think, is a little more reliable to catch the attention of the enemy, but it may not work if the enemy has creeps like here. Aggroing them here is a little further back, so it's less likely the enemy creeps will stop the pull. But sometimes the neutral creeps or your creeps get stuck in this pathing here while you block the path, and that's the downside. The other path, by the way, sometimes they lose creeps aggro here. So if you have a Quelling Blade or Tangos or your offlaner does, I highly recommend asking them to cut some of these trees. Will make these pulls a lot easier and remove the risk of losing sight. Next up, let's do some Radiant Safelane pulls. So the first pull is right through here, and the timing is 26 or 56 seconds. We're going to hit it in a second here, and you kind of have a choice. You can either like run through here or run through here. I kind of just like stand here, let them attack me, boom, pull. You may have also heard that was the stack pull. If you do 56 seconds, there you go. We got a stacked camp here to kill off our creeps. Another time you can use is 30 seconds or the minute mark. You hit the camp, you walk through here, easy pull, and then they're going to follow them back. This will not stack, obviously, if you're doing this at the minute mark, but this is a little easier to do. This pull, the timing is kind of close, and you have to stand here and let them hit you. I find that if you walk too far, the creeps lose aggro and they go back. This one, you can kind of just like walk out, and the creeps will chase you far enough to easily aggro the creep wave. And then the last one you can do is around 32 seconds or 0 to 2 seconds, and you just walk out here. Again, there's a little leniency for these pulls because this hard camp chases pretty far, but those are just the times I use. The last option available to the safe lane is to do what's called a connected pull, or a pull through. There's a different term for it depending on the people who use it. So you start with doing a small pull, and then as this camp dies, we're going to pull the hard camp over here and try to aggro them. This used to be the main way to do it, but it has since died off. So it's tough. I don't have a specific time to tell you. You kind of have to estimate when this creep's going to die. And then you see this creep attacked me, so I managed to aggro the whole creep wave besides this catapult, but whatever, let's not worry about that. Usually you might miss the range creep because the range creep is like standing down here, the melee creeps are here, and you pull in the hard camp around here, and so the melee creeps get aggroed, but the range creep does not. That's pretty common. The reason this is not so popular anymore is because people have caught on to pulling in general, and so the amount of time, like what is required to happen is that they don't realize you do a small pull. They don't realize so long, even after creeps don't show up in the lane, that you are then able to connect the pull. Most people will realize something is going on and walk over to stop you. So this kind of pull just doesn't really work as much, and most people don't do it anymore. And I personally think half pulling and stack pulling is much better and more consistent. The other issue is that you are using the hard camp, and like we highlighted before, that has its own pros and cons. So yeah, connected pulls, they're an option, but you won't really see it much anymore. We're going to do the Dire offlane next. First time is 16 or 46 seconds. You just hit it, you walk down. Actually, you could have even done this one sooner. This camp's now really lenient. It used to be more strict. You used to have to like stop right here, but now this camp can be pulled quite far. I would still use 16 seconds just to be safe. I'm using a melee here to show you guys it is possible to do some other timings now. Or do these timings with a melee hero, but I would keep in mind, I'm going to do 19 seconds here, by the way, guys. This is the next time, 19 or 49 seconds. I'd be a little careful if you're a melee hero. You may have to subtract half a second to a second, depending how slow you are. A lot of these timings, oops, we got cheats on, guys. Cheats affect neutral, so they clap a bunch like that. Yeah, but I mean, that's the pull, right? That's all you needed to see. If you're a melee hero, you may be really slow, and so like a ranged hero gets to attack the camp and immediately run, and so the camp just walks right away. If you are melee, they usually have time to attack you at least once, and that kind of slows down the times a bit. So sometimes you do have to add on an extra second, half a second to a second, depending how slow you are. Next timing is 21 seconds. Or 51 seconds there. A trick you can use that I'm going to show you here. walk into the camp instead of hitting them. I use directional movement there to make sure I don't accidentally hit them or path around. And that way, I look like a fool. Whatever, guys. It was close enough. If you use directional movement, in particular, if you have a slow attack speed, shout out to Treant Protector players. That can mess up your timing. You think 51 seconds, but you spend a second attacking. So walk into the camp and then turn around. That can be another way you do it. Last one to show you is 52 seconds. 22 or 52 seconds. But if you do 52, the bonus is that this is the stack pull. So you just kind of come out here. Melee creeps you see can attack you, and then you walk in a little further, and then that aggroes. If they're ranged, it's a little easier. And now we have this stacked camp. And a stacked camp will always kill off a creep wave, and they'll do it pretty fast. You see here, these guys are getting the bonus of the attack speed from the Hellbear Smasher. That's what I was talking about earlier. When these auras start affecting multiple creeps, that's when creep waves die really quickly. You can stack, by the way, doing 51 seconds through here too, but sometimes it gets like a little finicky. And honestly, 52 seconds typically works through here too, especially if you're a ranged hero. If you're melee, I find this one to be a little harder. But the thing is, you can also like walk through these trees a bit. Like your pathing can be flexible, especially if you have like a quelling blade to cut some of these trees. But the point is, stack pull this one, 52 seconds, somewhere in this area. Moving on to the Dire Safelane, these pulls are harder, 24 seconds or 54 seconds. Slightly late there, to be honest. They'll hit you. Yeah, we got 3 creeps this time. You can kind of tell, by the way. You can also run through here at like 55 seconds, and I think that is a little more reliable. The downside being like all these body blocking paths that we talked about earlier. So 54 through here, 55 through there. I think the 55 is a little more reliable. Axe, come on, do your job. You're supposed to body block the creeps for the video. I feel like I have to show the 25 or 55 timing, even though it's very similar. We're just going to run through here. And you used to have to stop here. You can now kind of like pull through a little further. There you go. Make sure. So I gave them vision there. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure they would have lost aggro. I shouldn't have walked around. I should have like followed right behind. Oops. We got cheats on again. You see, stop clapping there because there are only 2 creeps left. There you go. A much easier time is 28 or 58 seconds, and you just run right across like so. Just like the Offlane. This is a lot easier and more consistent. You don't have to worry about losing vision through the trees. But you'll notice where I am. Usually there's a tower here. Very easy to contest this pull. So it's not very common you get to do that. Maybe after you kill the enemy Offlane or after you shove in a huge wave. Both of those can be an opportunity to use this pull, but usually you don't get a chance for it. Now another pull, it's really hard to do. The timing's really tough. We're going to hit this at like 46 to 47 because I'm a melee hero, I think. Oh, let's hope. You have to cut this tree. You have to like stand right here, and as they attack you, you walk in. It's a lot easier to do with a range creep. As you saw there, this range creep attacked me, so I was able to move in closer for the projectile to hit. If you only have melee creeps, it's really tough. I do not recommend you rely on this pull. But the timing, if you want to try it, is 17 to 47 seconds. You stand like right around here. So actually, let me move out. I click like right around there, right above like the tree stump. Let them attack me, and then I walk forward. If you're a ranged hero, I use like 47 to 48, like 47.5 seconds. Melee heroes, I use 46.5-ish seconds. But I just try... Every time I try to do this, I screw it up, guys. I'm 6K, and I cannot reliably do this pull. I don't think you have to be able to do that pull to improve, you know? I think, like, these over here are way easier to use. And more so, I think it's better to prioritize using the small camp anyways. But if you do feel like you want to try the hard camp pull through here, there you go. It's very tough to do, though. And the last thing to show you guys, then, is the connected pull for the Dire. It's not really any different, so we're going to aggro it. Something that you can do to make it easier, potentially with an auto attack. Again, easier for ranged heroes. Ah, man, are we going to get screwed by the Kobold camp? Kobold camp, please. Kobolds are the worst. All right, we're going to redo it with a Heartbeat camp now. So, yeah, you pull the small camp. And then what I was trying to say is that if you have some kind of nuke ability or a ranged auto attack, to help yourself get the timing right, you just bring it over and then you kill the remaining creep. So we'll wait till this camp's about to die. We're going to hit it over. And then let's pretend this was like, I don't know, you had some like AoE nuke spell. Then you would kill this creep right now, let them aggro you. This is what I was talking about earlier. The ranged creep frequently does not get aggroed. But that's the idea. Sometimes if you like wait for the creep to die, you'll miss the timing by a second, and these guys will be running home already. So if you use a spell or an attack to kill the creeps, now like that's the most you can help with the timing. You might still miss it though. It is tough. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Not right now. If tri-lanes come back, maybe then we'll have to use this, because it worked back then. Because like one person would do the pull and then get last hits. The other person would connect the pull, and then together you can like zone out people, and the whole time the carry's like under the tower. So with tri-lanes, it was very useful to use this. I don't know if people would still do it, but maybe. But yeah, for now, I don't think you guys have to worry too much about that. To summarize all that, I've got some infographics here. They'll be in the description. They're also in the Discord channel under Infographics. That's new. Has some useful stuff there. But anyways, the times are there. And if it's got an X at the end, you have to like stand at that spot, let the neutral camp hit you, and you walk forward as the attack is launched. Or I recommend that. I think that's the easier way to do it. And then if it's got an arrow, you can just keep running through because there's a lot more leeway. But you can choose to stand there and let them hit you. Especially if you think the enemy is coming to try to draw aggro away, then getting the attack to launch and letting the attack hit you, finishing like the pull to draw the aggro is the faster way to do it. But if you want to avoid taking any damage, say you're close to dying, then running through is ideal. For the Dire Safelane, again, don't really recommend this one. I think it's better to just wait for this pull, or to just use the small camp half pull and stack it, things like that. Connected pull, I don't have a timing for you. Do your best. Dire Offlane, same deal. You can kind of just run through for all of these, though I do like to stand on the bottom one and allow the camps to hit me. And then the Radiant Safelane, again, take your best guess on the connected pulls if you do end up doing those. One of the last big topics I want to discuss is the biggest mistake you can make for a hard camp pull. Now, I don't want you guys to worry too much about this yet, because actually it will come up more in the next video, contested pulls, in a month or two. I'm just kidding. Hopefully it's sooner than that. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But anyways, I want to at least plant this idea in your head. And the biggest mistake you can make is to do something that allows the enemy to get the wave and the hard camp. So just a reminder of the values here. The whole idea of doing a pull is to deny the enemy golden experience. But because the hard camp is so close to the lane, if you aren't there to fight for it and you do something with equilibrium, such as allow the creeps to shove to the tower, this tends to force your core to go get those creeps. And that means the enemy, 2 heroes, can walk up to the hard camp that you use to pull the creeps. This means they get the whole wave, which they were going to get anyways if you didn't do the pull. And now they get the big camp, because you can't contest them by yourself if you're 1 hero, and your core is over by your own tower getting the creeps there. And so now the enemy gets both the wave and the hard camp. And this gets them a huge gold advantage for this stage of the game. Like 100 extra gold out of nowhere. That's tons. And you might get some XP, but you are splitting it 3 ways, with the enemy team getting 2 heroes worth, 2/3 of it. So that's better for them. So, you know, not great. Now, if you do this once, but establish equilibrium by your tower, it can be okay. Especially if you can then hold equilibrium there for a long time. Then you kind of give them a hard camp and hopefully split some yourself. But then you've got equilibrium going for the next several waves, and that's your kind of like your trade-off. But if you didn't need to do that, and if you don't establish equilibrium, but you just give them the wave and a hard camp, like that's kind of lane losing. One time, maybe not a big deal, but I'm sure many of you have experienced where it happens too many times and you lose the lane. So again, I will have better demonstrations and examples of this in the next video, but I want you guys to at least be able to think about it. And if you do a pull and then you see like, well, actually, I got scared and immediately ran away and the enemy came and farmed this, that's probably a bad pull. It may have been an okay pull, actually, but your offlaner may not have reacted properly to it. Or maybe your safe lane. Safe lanes can also do a bad hard camp pull. So anyways, when this happens, be aware of it, and that's probably not something that should have happened. That goes back to creep equilibrium. Go check the first video out again. Or maybe the second video. I don't remember what it was. But yeah, we'll talk about this more in the next video. So finally, some miscellaneous advice. Same with the small camp. If you can pull at the like first half, the first wave, first 30 seconds, that's usually better so that the camp has time to respawn in the next section. So the hard camp has like a whole variety of windows you can pull. So let's just say X19 to demonstrate the time. But if you do that pull, that gives you time to kill the camp and then let it respawn. And if you're trying to get the most out of golden experience from there, then like that's what you want to do. Now, of course, you don't always have to do that. And this is less true for the hard camp than it is for the small camp. Because the hard camp is more likely to be able to kill off a creep wave on its own and then be used for a second pull after that, especially because you can stack pull, so you don't even have to worry so much about pulling at 19 seconds. If you're like, well, I really want to be able to use this in the next minute, just stack pull at 52 seconds or 55 seconds, depending on like what you do, and then there you go, like problem solved. So this is not so much a concern for the hard camp. Stacked camps have even more utility and risk than the small camp because they will destroy creep waves. And the small camp, you stack it, kills one creep wave, but then the next one, like it's probably damaged enough where like you can't do another wave after that without stacking it again. But the hard camp, keep running in creep waves. They will destroy them, especially if you help them out. So that is great for equilibrium or for denying creeps. But if you want to farm them, then they're worth more golden experience, so it's fantastic. But having said all that, if the enemy uses your stacked hard camp, whether to deny their own creeps or to just farm it, then like, oh, that was bad. You know, they've just caught up all the golden experience that I denied from them. Because 2 hard camps is worth more than a single creep wave. So if they come and steal the camp after you use it to deny 1 creep wave, that wasn't worth it if you think about it. Unless you got some equilibrium benefits out of it, but that's like a much deeper topic. So be careful of stacked camps. Half pulls don't matter so much for hard camps just because the idea of the half pull is that, okay, some XP is there, some XP is there, you can't get both. It doesn't work with the hard camp because it's right by the lane, so it's very easy to get experience from both sides of it. But there's also no real need to do it because if you help the hard camp out, it can typically kill off a lot of creeps. So you don't have to do the same thing that you have to be worried about with the small camp. Lane creeps can lose aggro, as you saw from some of the clips. So be a little careful of that. It's really only a concern right now for the Dire hard camp. It's not really an issue ever for the small camp because the small camp is like right there. It comes up occasionally, but so rare that you don't really have to think about it. The hard camp, though, it will happen more often, especially with map changes. So you do want to keep it in mind. Try to keep vision of the jungle creeps for your lane creeps so they don't lose aggro. Couple questions to ask yourself about good pulls, or it'll help you decide when it's good to do a pull or not. Does your offlaner have good wave clear? And along that same lines, who can clear the hard camp stack? So typically if you have good wave clear, that also means you can kill off hard camps. If you have good wave clear, you can avoid the issue I mentioned before about bad pulls because you just shove the wave in easily, and while the enemy is dealing with the creeps under their own tower, you pull the next wave and they can't steal the hard camp, and your core is there to help you fight for it. Or you do a pull and they just kill the enemy creep wave right away, so they're not split off from you. They kill the creep wave and then they come do the hard pull with you and you're good to go. Beyond that, who can clear the hard camp? So ignoring the pulling side of it, can anyone steal that hard camp? Like if you have a bristleback, he can farm the wave and then go do the camp. Great. What if you end up like dying or whatever? Does the enemy have like a juggernaut who just comes in and steals your stacked camp? Like, that's not great. Or like a Naga Siren. So depending on which side has heroes that can steal hard camp stacks, you may want to keep that in mind. Don't just keep stacking the camp and pulling because they might just come and steal everything, and that'd be bad. And if the hard camp does get stacked up, that is consideration to be like, hey, mid laner, you want to come down here and gank? Because if you do, we might get a kill, great, and then you get this triple stack. Like, tempting, right? So when you notice there are stacks, that involves a whole consideration. There's a lot of value in that stack, so be aware of that. To wrap up, here's the same practice thing as last time, and here's the infographics all put together in a little nifty format. These cheat codes are pretty helpful. You may have seen it. This is good for yourself, but then the hard camps can spam out their abilities, messing up your pulls a little bit. But if you're just practicing getting the pull off, then that doesn't really matter. You can just keep it on. But yeah, thanks for watching. That is it for this video. I will try not to delay the rest of the series so long. I'll try to get to it sooner. Thanks for watching, guys. Goodbye.